Good day, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Maschine Masters. My name is MGTheFuture. On today's episode of What Would Producer Do, I'll be covering Drake's new song Free Smoke, produced by Boi1Da and Vinylz. It's a pretty catchy track. I've been noticing a lot of freestyles appear over this particular instrumental. So whenever that happens, I like to analyze and kind of see if I can determine what's the root cause of that. Besides it just being a catchy catchphrase, in a hard instrumental, it's actually very simple, and I've noticed a lot of our biggest songs are our simplest songs. So we're gonna check this out. I'll play the original pitched up first, so you guys, if you haven't heard it, have an idea of what this particular track is.
I saw people doing things, almost gave up on the music thing, but we all so spoiled now. More life, more everything. Must have never had your phone tap. All that yaping on the phone shit.
Alright, so that's the original. It's pitched up. If you want to hear the original, definitely go to YouTube or Spotify and check out Free Smoke. When I was looking at the credits in Wikipedia, I noticed right away they credited Tony Yayo, and that didn't make a whole lot of sense because this wasn't one of his hooks. But I later found the original sample where the background brooding noises is coming from. It's a type of reggae stab or chord. So I'm gonna play that next. This is pitched up as well. So you notice that song's a whole nother vibe. It's more of a West Coast Dre piano type vibe with that haunting chord in the background. And of course, when you analyze songs like this, before you pitch it up, or before I pitched it up, it was in a different arrangement. Here we go. So I went ahead and got the tempo from this, which was 142 beats per minute or 71 beats per minute. And I noticed right away it's doing an A-B pattern all the way through the song until you get to this point of the waveform where he starts saying free smoke. He just doubles up where there's bass in the song. So I went ahead and made loop markers, and the best way to do that is to select an area of your timeline and right click and do add locator. That's the smartest thing to do, especially if it's a song with a lot of different changes or parts. I always do the locators first. The next part I noticed about this song, or this particular Drake version, is that it's doing the thing with the bass again. On my previous two videos, I highlighted the fact that people are adding and removing kicks for energy purposes. So in this song, the A-B arrangement, the only difference between arrangement A and arrangement B is the lack of bass altogether. So it's not just a kick being layered like on the Kendrick Lamar joint, it's just the bass being removed altogether. And of course the percussion knock sound for an extra snare, and I'll show you that in my version so you can hear it. And the last thing was, when I was analyzing these original chords from this Tony Yayo version, I'm gonna go ahead and highlight a region of it. I'm gonna right click and split it. I'm gonna right click to split, and I'm gonna go to consolidate to make it its own loop, which you'll see across the bottom here. And then I'll right click and convert harmony to a new MIDI track. If you're not an Ableton Live user, you can use something such as Melodyne Editor and the DNA version, which will give you polyphonic notes, which you can then export to MIDI and re-import into Maschine or Logic or whichever program you happen to use. But I noticed right away when I looked at the MIDI the first time that one haunting chord was a very huge chord. These breaks in the MIDI is just it being played staccato, and of course the delay. So the detection is counting the note each time it shows up on the waveform, but it's really just sustained. So I noticed right away when I counted these notes up, there was more notes than people have fingers. So it wasn't very likely that this particular piano was played in these exact notes or chords or by one hand. So my challenge was finding a sample to match that without having to use the original that sounded like suspense or hit or drama stab. So I found this in my loop collection. I'll go ahead and play this. And it's very similar. It's not as many keys, but it's a whole bunch of keys pressed at once. It's kind of like a stab or a stinger that you're probably more used to if you do television or film work. And this particular sample's been in my collection for a while, and I've heard it a few times when I go pick the other ones, but I had no use for it because it's so simple and it sounds like an outro. So what would I chop out of that? So this particular exercise gave me the perfect opportunity to use it. So the first thing I wanted to do before I jumped into that was find out the keys of all these tracks. So the original Tony Yayo one was in B flat minor, or at least that's where it's detecting it at. The Drake's Free Smoke version was then pitched to G minor, which is, so it's like -3 transposed down. So they transpose it down 3 steps. And then on the one that I'm using, it's in C minor. So all I would have to do is raise it about 7 steps or go 5 backwards. And that's exactly what I did. I put mine in the key of these particular tracks. And I want to let you hear what that sounds like. So the only difference in this one is that I'm hitting it on every downbeat, just like the original sample, and I'm using it in G minor. And to get the high and low versions, they're just an octave apart, so they're just 12 steps apart. This way I didn't have to worry about figuring out any other keys or chords. Also in the Free Smoke original version, there's no bass pitching, really. I think there's probably like a hit or a bass hit on the 5th, between bars, but that's about it, and that looks like this. So it's pretty straight ahead sub bass for the parts where the sub bass is playing, and then they drop it every 4 bars. For the drums, which is the last part, this part was the easiest part. They have a pretty cool pattern with the hi-hats. Let me see if I can get that going. So straight 16 hi-hats and an open hat between or right before each downbeat, and then a triplet pattern at the end. And then on the part where there is no kick or drums, or no kick and no bass, it's the same exact pattern without the triplets at the end. With this added hits from that percussion sound. So that's pretty much it. You could just duplicate that through the whole song. A, B, A, B, A, B. Have the sample playing all the way through. And the Drake version, after they pitched it, they also added some instrumentation to it, which comes in the form of a piano. So instead of doing that, I added a synthesizer to mine. I won't play that all together and show you the notes for that. What I ended up doing is, since I pitched mine to G minor, I ended up making my melody the chord of G minor. So that's exactly what I'm doing. And the synthesizer is just a sustained G note, which is making this kind of atmospheric sound, which I also heard in the Drake version. It's a different atmosphere, but it's serving the same role. So let me go ahead and play this all together for you so you can get an idea of what it sounds like when you bring it all together. And I also added a reggae voice sample in the beginning as well. And the reason why I did that is because Drake is using his Toronto accent in the beginning of his song.
This beat's on fire.
So the last part of this particular example that I did to kind of give it more life in my particular version was that I added a pitch bend, and you're going to see it here. I'm using the free plugin iZotope Vinyl, and it looks like this. The latest release has a spin down effect, which of course emulates a turntable, and it only turns on here. So the only automated parameter I have is spin down, and I'm drawing it on for the last beat at the end of 4 bars. So Logic users, you know that's a little bit more easier because we have the envelope clips for fade out and fade in. But for everyone else who may not have that, or if you don't have Machine Jam, because it also has a very similar feature, even like Stutter Edit and Gross Beat, all of them have a pitch down type thing, but iZotope Vinyl is universal. It literally has a spin down effect, and all you have to do is automate it on. So that's pretty cool to use. I know a lot of people ask about that to add different interests to their beats and tracks. I do it a lot when I'm 2-tracking instrumentals for rappers. When I record sessions for them, I always add like a tape down effect on the trap beats to give it more energy. Another thing I did, because this song didn't really have a hook, or the way they arranged it wasn't really a hook, so I kind of created a type of transition effect that would create the illusion that something changed in the beat, or that, you know, it gives the rapper the cue that something's about to happen. So in my case, the something that's about to happen was the actual going from hook back into verse. So let's see if I can find that. So right here, what I'm doing is a type of automation, is just a volume automation, and it's similar to how a DJ would do if they're crossfading. So I'm drawing a beat or a beat pattern of the volume being turned off and turned on. So I'm gonna play that for you so you can hear how it sounds. So yeah, let's play it all together with the drums. I'm trying to think of anything else that I would want to add to this for my own taste. But for the kind of track it is, it's pretty straightforward. It's literally the G minor chord, or the the super G minor chord in the original sample, repeating itself over and over again. In order to add interest to that, or for it not to get bland, you then rely on your techniques of different drum arrangements and special effects, and of course the voice, which would be the rapper's responsibility. So that's it for today's What Would Producer Do segment. My name is MGTheFuture. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the box below. If you're not a subscriber, definitely subscribe. You can follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at MGTheFuture and at Maschine Masters. I'll leave that below. Appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.